Have you ever felt like the more available you are, the more invisible you become? Like the more you say yes, the less anyone seems to actually hear you. You show up, you support, you stretch yourself thin, and somehow it's never enough. There's a strange paradox here. The more you give, the less you seem to matter. The more present you are for others, the more absent you feel in your own life. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." So ask yourself, why does being unavailable feel selfish? Why does protecting your peace feel like betrayal? Why does choosing yourself trigger guilt, while abandoning yourself feels normal? The answer is buried deep in childhood teachings and unspoken rules. Because someone, somewhere taught you that love is earned through sacrifice. That being loved means being needed, and that to be worthy, you must always be reachable, agreeable, available. But what if that story is a lie? What if your availability has become the very thing that keeps you from being truly seen? The world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you. Some people shift the entire energy of a room without saying a word, without making a scene. They don't argue, they don't beg, they don't chase. They simply step back. And suddenly the whole dynamic changes. People notice, they feel the absence. They start to question what was once taken for granted. Now imagine if you did the same. No more racing to reply to every message. No more justifying your silences or over-explaining your boundaries. No more being emotionally on call for people who drain you. What happens when you become unavailable? People panic, but not because they miss you, not because they care about your well-being. They panic because they can no longer access the version of you they were using. They can't predict you anymore. They can't control the game they didn't realize they were playing until it stopped working. And suddenly, your absence speaks louder than all the words you ever said. This isn't cruelty. This is clarity. The moment you stop giving on demand, you start reclaiming what was always yours. Your energy, your space, yourself. We cannot change anything until we accept it. You were trained from childhood, smile, be polite, say yes, don't cause conflict, don't make waves. You were rewarded for being agreeable and punished, sometimes silently, for having needs, for saying no, for wanting space, for speaking up. So you adapted. You learned to overfunction. You became the helper, the fixer, the emotional caretaker. You made yourself useful to feel lovable. You took on everyone's stress just to keep the peace. And they called you strong for carrying what they never had to. But every sure, every of course, every I'll be there slowly chipped away at you. Now you feel it. A kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. A quiet frustration that builds under your smile. An emptiness you can't quite name. It's not just fatigue. It's the ache of overextending yourself for people who wouldn't cross the street for your peace of mind. They don't notice when you're silent. They don't ask how you're doing because they've only ever known the version of you that gives and gives without pause. But something inside you is changing, and it's not burnout, it's awakening. Carl Jung didn't view the mind as a machine of logic. He saw it as a living system, charged with energy, psychic energy. Every thought you obsess over, every argument you rehash in your head, every emotional yes you say when you mean no, costs you. And the cost isn't just time. It's your vitality, your inner fire. It's the quiet depletion you feel but can't quite name. Ask yourself honestly, Where is your energy going? To conversations that go in circles? To people who only remember you when they need rescuing? To obligations that drain your spirit but maintain your image? That's not generosity. That's slow spiritual erosion. That which you resist persists. And the more you resist claiming your boundaries, the more life pulls you into dynamics that feed on your denial. The more you explain yourself to those who refuse to hear you, the more you begin to vanish from your own life. Protecting your psychic energy isn't selfish. It's sacred, because once that energy is gone, so is your capacity to live with depth, clarity, and presence. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Have you noticed the pattern? You're the one people call when they're falling apart, but vanish the moment you need support. You're the steady one, the grounded one, the one who listens, calms, fixes. But what they really want isn't your truth. They want your utility. They want the version of you that's endlessly patient, always composed, always available. You've become their emotional emergency button. Push and you show up. Not because you're asked, but because you've trained yourself to respond. And in doing so, you train them to expect it, not consciously, but consistently. And now it's automatic. Their crisis becomes your responsibility. But let's be honest, that's not love. That's emotional servitude. It's the quiet self-abandonment we dress up as being there for others. But each time you answer that call, when your own cup is empty, you send a silent message. My peace is negotiable. Yours isn't. My needs can wait. Yours come first. But why should someone value your boundaries when you keep erasing them yourself? Maybe it's time to stop being everyone's safe place and start becoming your own. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to survive in a world that rewards performance over presence. It's the version of you that others find convenient. Maybe you're the strong one, the reliable one, the always there no matter what one. But masks come at a cost. Because beneath all that composure, beneath the smiles and the steady voice, is a version of you that's exhausted and quietly screaming for rest. But no one hears that voice because the mask is louder and you've worn it for so long, even you forget there's a face beneath it. But here's the truth. Saying I'm not available right now isn't cold. It's not selfish. It's not a betrayal of love. It's a declaration of self-respect. It's the beginning of stepping out from behind the mask and letting the real you breathe. Not for validation, but for freedom. Real work is completed in silence. You don't have to shout. You don't have to explain yourself into exhaustion. You don't owe anyone a dramatic exit or a closing statement. Just withdraw, quietly, intentionally, and let your silence do the talking. Because silence, when chosen consciously, can speak louder than any speech ever could. It says, I'm no longer playing the role you wrote for me. It says, my peace matters more than your comfort. And yes, people will notice. They'll start to squirm. They'll accuse you of being cold, selfish, ungrateful. But that's not about you. That's about their dependence on your dysfunction. They weren't in love with your truth. They were attached to your predictability, to the version of you that overgave, over-explained, over-functioned. Now, you're sovereign. You no longer react out of guilt or obligation, and that terrifies people who only knew how to relate to your brokenness. But that silence, it's not absence. It's the beginning of your reconstruction, the sound of you returning to yourself. You'll feel guilty at first. You'll second-guess yourself. You'll wonder if you're becoming too hard, too distant, too unlike the version of you that always made others feel safe at your own expense. That guilt? It's not proof you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're healing from a lifetime of self-abandonment. Because for so long, your worth was tied to how accessible, agreeable, and available you were. And now that you're reclaiming space, your nervous system doesn't know what to do with the quiet. But let me say this clearly. You're not becoming hard, you're becoming whole. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that becoming requires solitude. Not the loneliness of exile, but the sacred isolation of returning home to yourself. You're not disappearing, you're reappearing. Without the mask, without the guilt, without the need to prove or perform. And while others may not understand this version of you, you finally will. And that's what makes this silence holy. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Let this be the moment you shift, not with noise, not by begging to be understood, not by defending your silence or over-explaining your peace, but simply by saying, "Not today, I choose my energy." Because every time you resist the urge to react, to defend yourself, to respond out of habit, to fix what was never yours to fix, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you choose silence over justification, presence over performance, you build a deeper center. This isn't passivity. This is mastery. Because real strength isn't how loud you get. It's how calm you remain when your old triggers try to pull you back. It's walking away without guilt. Not to punish, but to protect your peace. This is what Jung hinted at. Emotional discipline is spiritual power. Not reacting isn't weakness, it's sovereignty. It's knowing your energy is a sacred currency, and not everyone gets access. Not because you're closed off, but because you finally realized not every battle is yours to fight. Not every noise deserves your presence. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. The most powerful boundaries aren't shouted. They aren't written in long texts or drawn in dramatic confrontations. They're quiet, subtle, intentional. They look like a message you choose not to answer right away because your peace matters more than instant access. A call you let go to voicemail because you don't owe anyone your urgency. A plan you decline, not because you're rude, but because rest is revolutionary. This isn't you being cold. This isn't about punishing or proving a point. It's about not abandoning yourself in the name of being nice. It's about choosing presence with yourself over performance for others. Because let's be honest, every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you show up out of guilt, you chip away at your own center. You weren't born to be everyone's lifeline. You were born to live aligned. You don't owe anyone constant accessibility. You don't owe them explanations for your stillness. What you owe is to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. That guilt you feel, it's not proof that you're doing something wrong. It's proof that something old is falling away. You're not breaking down. You're breaking out. What you're feeling is grief, not for others, but for the version of you that lived in constant performance. The one who bent over backwards just to be included. The one who said yes while silently screaming no. The one who explained herself into exhaustion, trying to earn love that should have never needed to be earned. Let her go. Mourn her if you must, but don't mistake her loyalty for health. That wasn't love. That was fear. Fear of being abandoned, misunderstood, unloved. And fear has a way of dressing itself up as selflessness. But you're starting to see it now, aren't you? The guilt isn't a signal to go back. It's a signal that you're crossing into a new version of yourself. A version rooted not in people-pleasing, but in peace. Let the guilt come, let it rise, and then let it pass. Because who you're becoming no longer runs on guilt. She runs on truth. When you stop reacting, something powerful happens. People lose control over the version of you they were using. They no longer know how to predict you. They can't reach you through guilt. They can't control you with disappointment. Your silence disrupts their script, because without your emotional compliance, their game doesn't work anymore. And so, they push harder. They accuse you of changing, of being selfish, cold, distant. They'll try to provoke the old you, the one who would rush to fix, explain, smooth things over. But don't flinch. They're not mourning you. They're mourning the loss of access to you. You're not being difficult, you're being different. And different is what healing looks like. It's not loud, it's not chaotic, it's steady, quiet, resolute. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And your refusal to play the role, it forces them to face themselves. Don't confuse the noise of their discomfort with a sign you're doing something wrong. It's just the collapse of their control and the beginning of your freedom. Carl Jung once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. What we can't accept within, we cast outward, onto others, onto relationships, onto convenient targets." So when someone says you've changed, what they're often really saying is, "You no longer fit into the story I was using you to tell myself." And that is not your responsibility. You were not born to carry the weight of someone else's unresolved pain. You are not their mirror, their projection screen, or their emotional dumping ground. You're not here to play a role in someone else's fantasy, especially when that fantasy comes at the cost of your truth. When you grow, when you stop reacting, when you set boundaries, their illusion shatters. And for many that feels like betrayal. But it's not betrayal, it's liberation. Let the projection fall apart. Let the image they built of you crumble. You are not here to be who they need. You are here to become who you truly are. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. In a world that glorifies speed, noise, and constant motion, we've forgotten the power of stillness. We're taught that to pause is to fall behind. That silence is weakness. That inaction means losing control. But the truth is, stillness is not weakness. It is discipline. It is precision. It is strength in its most refined form. To pause instead of reacting, to sit with discomfort instead of rushing to fix it, to hold your energy instead of pouring it into chaos, that's not passivity, that's power. Real strength is not loud. It's not about proving, it's about choosing. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do is absolutely nothing. To not send the text, to not explain, to not chase closure. Carl Jung believed that inner transformation happens in silence, in the quiet spaces between reaction and response. Stillness is not absence, it's presence, deep, grounded, and unshakable. Because when you can sit with your own discomfort without needing to distract, fix, or fight, you've already won a battle most people don't even know they're losing. We cannot change anything unless we accept it. You don't have to prove you're good by how much you give. You don't have to sacrifice your well-being just to be seen as worthy. You were not put on this earth to be agreeable at your own expense. Exhaustion is not a badge of honor. Self-abandonment is not a virtue. If someone only values you when you're overextending, if they disappear the moment you set a boundary, that's not love. That's emotional dependency masquerading as connection. Real love doesn't demand your depletion. It doesn't require performance. It doesn't punish your silence or twist your boundaries into betrayal. True connection respects your no as much as your yes. It honors your energy instead of feeding on it. It invites you to be whole, not just helpful. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and that includes accepting that you are not here to please everyone." The moment you stop performing for acceptance is the moment you step into sovereignty, into the kind of self-respect no applause can give and no rejection can take away. Until you make the unconscious conscious, now comes the return, but not to who you were, not to the overextended, over-apologetic version of you that the world once praised but never truly saw. This is the return to who you've always been, beneath the noise, beneath the conditioning, beneath the mask. The one who doesn't owe anyone their constant availability. The one who can sit in silence without guilt. The one who can say no without a 10-line explanation. You don't need to prove that your piece is valid. You don't need to justify your silence as if it were a crime. Let stillness be your statement. Let your boundaries speak for themselves. This isn't about becoming distant. It's about becoming centered, not performative, but present. Not reactive, but rooted. Not depleted, but alive. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the path of becoming who you truly are. And this is it, the quiet reassembly of your selfhood. Not loud, not desperate, not chaotic, just real, whole, unshaken. The return to your center is not a retreat from life. It's the first time you're actually living it. We are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become. Some people won't recognize the new you. The quieter you, the clearer you. The one with boundaries. Let them go. Some will try to guilt you, shame you, pull you back into the role you outgrew. Stay silent. You don't owe them the old version of yourself just to keep the peace. Because when you stop being available for everything, you become available for something greater. Your own peace, your own power, your own life. This is not an ending. It's a beginning. The moment you stop outsourcing your worth, you start building a self that no one can take from you. Write in the comments, "I reclaim my energy." Let it be your promise to yourself. Let it be the line you no longer cross. Let's see how many of us are choosing truth over tolerance, silence over survival, self over sacrifice. And if this resonated, if something stirred in you, not because it was loud, but because it was real, then stay, not to follow, to remember, to reclaim what's been buried under performance and approval. Subscribe, not for noise, but for clarity, not to be fed, but to be reminded that you're not alone, that there are others walking this quiet, powerful path too. And when they see your voice in the comments, they'll recognize it as their own.